Okay, so now it's time to work on our user model. So we need to access our database. So we need, of course, context. We definitely need the SQL package. So database / SQL. Okay, so I think we have everything we need. So let's come down. Before we do that, actually, I need to include a error type. So I'm going to create an error type. And this error type we will use if the user tries to sign up with a duplicate email. So we're going to have error duplicate email. So this is the error that we want to provide. Error duplicate email. And so we have errors that new, and the message will be duplicate email. Okay, so that's all we need. Let's put a space down, and so let's go back down to the bottom of our users.go file, and let's write some code to access our database. Okay, so of course we need our model, so we're going to create our user model. And so that's easy enough. We'll simply do what we did for schools. So we'll have user model, and of course user model needs to be provided with a connection, DB connection. So DB of type SQL dot DB, right? Great. So once we have that, we can go ahead and write our methods on the user model type. So let's insert data. So we will insert, we'll create a new user. So let's create our function. This function will be, of course, on type user model. And this function will be called insert. And so what we need to provide is, of course, a pointer to a user, right? Since we want to update that user. And so let's create our query. Let's create our query. All right, so we'll say query will be insert into users, and we want to insert into name, into email, into password hash, and activated. Okay, so what do we want to insert? Well, values $1 placeholder, $2 placeholder, $3 placeholder, $4 placeholder. And we want to get the ID. We want to get the created at the timestamp, and we want to get the version. All right, so that's what will be returned by the PostgreSQL query. So once we have that, we'll go ahead and we will use that query. So let's first collect our arguments. And so I have my interface. Okay, and then I'll simply provide a user.name, and then we will have user.email, and then we will have user.password dot hash, and finally we will have user that's activated. Okay, CTX, cancel. Okay, and of course we'll have our context, 3-second timeout, similar to what we did for our school. And we will defer the calling of cancel. Okay, so we're making progress. Let's just go ahead and perform the query. So we know that error will be returned, and we will say m.db dot query row context. So we'll provide our context, of course, and we'll provide our query followed by the actual arguments. Okay, now whatever is returned, we need to store those. So we're going to say scan, and we will have the first one stored in user.id, the second one stored in user.created@, and the third one stored in user.version. Okay, easy enough. So let's go ahead and check for error. So if error not nil, then we know we have a problem. So let's do a switch, because we need to check to see if the error was actually caused because of the client trying to register or trying to use the same email twice. So let's check for that. And so we need to check the type of error. So error, so let's check that type. Okay, so let's check that error. And so if the error is actually PQ colon duplicate key value violates unique constraint, okay, and in quotes users underscore email underscore key. So this would be the specific error that would be returned by Postgres if we try to insert an email twice. Okay. All right. So if that's the case, then all I want to do is to return error duplicate email. Okay, since we need to return an error message. Okay, so if that's not the error, then we will simply return a default. Okay, and so the default will simply be to return whatever error has occurred. Okay, and then of course that takes care of our error handling. Okay, now if there is no error, so of course we'll skip this block, we'll skip this, and so it means that everything went well, and so we'll simply return nil to signify that everything went well. Okay, so that's it for our insertion function, creating a new user. All right, if everything goes well, we have a new user, but if we try to insert a new user with an already existing email, then we will have an error, and so we can use that to notify the client that they need to use a new email address. We'll leave it here and we'll pick it up where we'll continue working on the methods for our user model.